Good morning. I'm just waiting a moment for our attendees to enter the room. So you know, I think you should be able to see and hear me, but at this point, do not yet have controls to turn on your microphone or video. So I will have some introductions as everyone gets joined, and we'll move forward. We'll take this one step at a time this morning. I'll look to my team. See it looks like we have the court reporter on. Um, let's go ahead and please, if we can promote the court reporter to panelist status so we can go on the record. Both of the court reporters. I think there's just one, but two links.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Are you ready for us to go on the record?
I am ready when you are ready.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, I'll go ahead and get started with introductions. Good morning. It's April 3rd, 2025. I'm Nicole Kinsey, the presiding hearing officer for the Administrative Hearings Office of the State Water Resources Control Board. This is the commencement or recommencement, I should say, of the evidentiary portion of the hearing on the pending petitions for change of water right permits 16478, 16479, 16481, and 16482 of the Department of Water Resources for the proposed Delta Conveyance project. I am conducting this hearing in accordance with the July 31st Notice of Public Hearing and subsequent amendments. I am joined this morning on the Zoom webinar platform today by two members of the State Water Board. We have Board Member Firestone and Board Member Morgan, and I would like to ask my team at this time to move both board members to panelist status, if you would, please. As they do that, I will go ahead and continue this. The hearing this morning is being conducted by Zoom webinar, which is a little different than our previous platform. So we will be using new procedures today in implementing the additional security measures. As I mentioned, you are currently in the webinar as attendees, which as I understand means you can't see who else is in as attendees in the webinar. At this time, you do not have the ability to unmute yourself or turn on your video, but you can raise your Zoom hand. So we will be relying on that feature and your ability to raise your Zoom hand if there are attendees, if you're in the status of attendee and have something that you need to say. But please be patient with us as we all get used to these new procedures and new processes. We'll take it one step at a time. When you raise your Zoom hand, I will ask the AHO team to unmute you, and then I will invite you to speak, and you'll be able to speak as normal. If you are planning on actively participating today, and that's to anyone who might be outside of our hearing room right now, but are listening to us on YouTube, if you're going to actively participate, you do need to log into the Zoom webinar using the individual link that should have been sent to you by Zoom. Everyone on the service list should have received an individual link, and you should have received a reminder about an hour before this hearing started. So that may be the most convenient way to find your link. If you can't find it, please check your junk mailbox. It might be there. But if you still can't find it or are having any other difficulties or did not receive an individual link but intend on participating today and are associated with a party, please send the AHO an email. The AHO staff are monitoring the inbox at dcp-wr-petition@waterboards.ca.gov. And if you have your individual invitation, if you scroll down a little bit in that invitation, you will select the join link, join webinar, and that should put you in the room with us as an attendee. It is, as I mentioned, going to take a little time for us to go through appearances this morning, and I ask for your patience while we make sure that everyone is able to join the hearing who plans to participate. And I do hope as we move forward with our hearing days, it will become more streamlined as we all get used to it. But bear with me today. This hearing is being broadcast live on the AHO YouTube channel. If you are not planning to speak, please and participate, please use the YouTube channel for viewing the hearing rather than logging into the Zoom platform. That really helps us manage the hearing room. Both the audio and video of this hearing are being recorded, and we will post files of this recording in the FTP folder for this proceeding. The YouTube recording will also be available on the AHO YouTube webpage. As usual in our hearing process, we will take breaks today. We will have a mid-morning break, a lunch break, and we will have a hard stop today and every day at 5 p.m. We will have a little different procedures. I will ask over lunch that all of you, if you're willing, remain in the Zoom room in terms of your link, but we can talk about that once we actually get to lunch. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath. And all of you, if anyone is having trouble logging in, please send us an email and we can be working with you behind the scene. I did want to start our morning before we move to the substance by acknowledging the disruption of our hearing on March 24th. In addition to all of us being subjected to that highly offensive and abhorrent content, I'm also deeply disturbed that the attack seems to have been targeted at certain groups and certain individuals and intended to disrupt and undermine this proceeding and the open and public hearings that the AHO conducts. And I've expressed this in my emails to you last week, but I did want to say it here on the record. And for those who may be listening, members of the public listening on YouTube today. And I wanted to acknowledge that no one should have to risk being subjected to this type of visual and verbal assault at any time, nonetheless when they participate in what is supposed to be an open government process. I listened to the public comments made to the State Water Board members at the meeting yesterday, and I heard the impact that the disruption had on many who were planning to participate in this proceeding. I'm sorry that there are people who would do this and who believe that such behavior is justified. And I apologize that there was an opportunity for that type of person or people to enter this hearing room and inflict this disruption and other more serious impacts on all of us. Since last Monday, the AHO has worked with staff from the board's Division of Information Technology, who's here assisting us with the hearing today, to implement the new protocols that will continue to allow for us to conduct hearings in which the public may participate, but that will include security measures to prevent an attack similar to what occurred on March 24th and significantly limit the possibility of any other type of future disruption. Again, I wanted to make clear that after investigation, staff from the Division of Information Technology concluded that the events that occurred were not the result of a cybersecurity breach. It was an organized and planned manipulation of the Zoom settings used in past AHO proceedings. And I have received confirmation from the chief of our Division of Information Technology that there is no possibility that any device that you may have used to log into the Zoom hearing on March 24th could have been compromised by what occurred. That is not possible. To address the disruption of public policy statements, the AHO has identified a date for hearing policy statements that will be May 19th. We are in the process of issuing a fourth amended hearing notice, which will memorialize May 19th. We will be sending an email to the interested parties list with that date and information about how that hearing will be conducted. It will be in hybrid format. That means members of the public are welcome to attend in person at the Cal EPA building in Sacramento or can appear by Zoom webinar. Because of the new security measures, however, commenters will be required to register for the meeting in advance so that we can send a personal link to log into the webinar. And we are assembling exactly how that process will work and are putting together clear information and direction about how that will work to try to minimize any confusion. And we will circulate that information as soon as we have it and as soon as possible so that there will be time, plenty of time, hopefully, to answer any questions about the process before May 19th. With all of that, and I dislike this new setting because I'm the only one on camera. It's very lonely out here, but I will now call for appearances. I'd like to go through appearances. This will be a little bit tedious, I think that's fair to say, but bear with me on this. we will figure out how to make this more streamlined going forward. But if you are representing or associated with an entity today, I'm going to go ahead and call by party the way I normally do. But when I call your party, if you would, please raise your Zoom hand if you're associated with that entity. I will then ask AHO staff to change your status to panelist. This means that you will be able to turn on your video and your audio, and I would ask that you do that, both video and audio, so that we can see you, you can introduce yourself, and then we will move you back to attendee status, and we will go through each in the room so that we know exactly who is here and who is participating today. Once again, if you're not planning to actively participate, I would ask that you consider watching on YouTube rather than through the Zoom webinar. And with that, we will start first with the California Department of Water Resources. If you would please raise your Zoom hand, and I will ask my team, if you would please go ahead and elevate Ms. Carroll. We will start with Ms. Carroll. Welcome, and please.
Thank you. And just for others' awareness, it made me reload my Zoom, so you're not being kicked out. You just have to rejoin the meeting. Thank you for that, Hearing Officer Kinsey and Carol appearing for DWR. I'm joined here today by my colleagues, Christopher Butcher with DWR, and then our outside counsel, Steph Morris. And just before we begin, I wanted to make sure that your office had received my opening slides. They did not appear in our exhibit list, but they were uploaded to the FTP site. And those slides were created using all visuals that were previously submitted in our exhibits. So it should not be new information for anybody.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. I'll have my team, while we work to get your rest of the team in the room here, we will work and verify that we have, I would imagine we have them. It's just going to be making sure we know where to locate them and can bring them up. Thank you for letting me know.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
And if we can elevate, I would like to see everyone on camera. So I'm going to ask if we can elevate Ms. Morris, and then, and I'm sorry, Ms. Carroll, will you please identify the other? Oh, Mr. Butcher.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes. And just for your awareness, we are using a singular microphone in the room to prevent audio issues. So it will be through my audio. I'll have them identify themselves when they speak.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Morris and Mr. Butcher, when you're ready, if you can come on camera and introduce yourself.
Morning, Chris Butcher, Department of Water Resources, Office of General Counsel.
Thank you, good morning. And Ms. Morris.
Good morning, Stephanie Morris, outside counsel for the Department of Water Resources.
Thank you, good morning. And then I believe we have one of the witnesses in the room, so we might as well say good morning. And you will please pronounce your last name, but Eli Atelijevich, you would please come on camera.
It's a Atelijevich, like a television, Atelijevich. I'm working for the Modeling Support Office of the Department of Water Resources.
Thank you, and good morning, Mr. Atelijevich. Did I get it better? By improving. All right. We do have the opening slides confirmed, so thank you, Ms. Carroll. And is this, I know we will have at some point additional witnesses. Should we bring those up? Ms. Carroll, would you identify DWR's other witnesses who are in the room?
Absolutely. We also have Eric Reyes and Andy Draper.
And I'll look, if my team can please promote Mr. Draper and Mr. Reyes. And Mr. Reyes, if you would please come on camera and introduce yourself.
Yes, Eric Reyes, manager of the Mountain Support Office of the Department of Water Resources.
Thank you. Good morning. And Mr. Draper.
Good morning. Not sure you can on camera yet.
This is part of our test, is to see if we can get you all. There we go.
Okay. Don't. My name's Andy Draper. I'm a principal engineer with Stantec and a consultant to the Department of Water Resources for the Delta Conveyance project.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Draper. With that, I believe we're ready to move to our next party, state water contractors. And I will look to my team to please promote Mr. Krieger. And Mr. Krieger, you're welcome to come on camera and unmute and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, Hearing Officer Kenzie. Miles Krieger for the State Water Contractors.
Thank you. Good morning. U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. And AHO team, please promote Ms. Alftenberg. And Ms. Alftenberg, you're welcome to come off mute and turn on your video. Say good morning.
Good morning, Amy Oftenberg for the Department of Interior Reclamation. I'm not exactly sure if I'm alone today, but throughout the proceeding, you'll probably see me, Anna Brathwaite, Kate Laubach, or Allison Mitchell as for representing Reclamation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Westlands Water District. Ms. Loon, if we would please promote her to panelist. Good morning.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Mary Loom on behalf of Westlands Water District.
Thank you. Good morning. South Delta Water Agency, Central Delta Water Agency, Heritage Land Company, and Rudy Moosey Investments, LP. If we could please promote Mr. Reese. And Mr. Reese, you're welcome to come off mute and turn on your microphone. Good morning.
Dean Reese for Central Delta Water Agency and South Delta Water Agency and the other parties you mentioned. And I'm here with John Herrick.
Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Byron Bethany Irrigation District. Ms. Tabor, if we would please promote Ms. Tabor to a panelist. And you're welcome to come off mute. Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Kenzie. Kelly Tabor, SOMAC Simmons and Dunn, on behalf of Byron Bethany Irrigation District. Would you prefer that I state the appearances for our other parties at this time?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Also here on behalf of the City of Stockton, the County of Sacramento, Sacramento County Water Agency, and Sacramento Area Sewer District. And also on the webinar, on behalf of all those parties, is LaWinda Lacey from our firm. She should have her hand raised.
Or let's see. Yes, there she is. If we would please promote Ms. Lacey to panelist so she can say good morning. Thank you, Ms. Tabor.
Thank you.
Ms. Lacey, you're welcome to come off mute and turn on your video and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Sorry, I went to a different screen there for a second. My apologies. Good morning, Officer Kenzie, LaWinda Lacey. So Simmons and Dunn on behalf of all of the entities mentioned by Ms. Tabor.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I will next turn to East Bay Municipal Utility District. Do we have anyone from EB Mud? El Dorado Irrigation District. If we can please promote Mr. Donlin. And Mr. Donlin, you're welcome to turn on your video and audio and introduce yourself. It looks like, Mr. Donlin, we're having trouble with the audio. You're not on mute, but we can't hear you. It may be a microphone. I'm terrible.
How is this, Ms.
There we go.
Kinsey?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, my apologies. Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. Robert Donlin, Wanger, Jones, and Helsley on behalf of the El Dorado Irrigation District and also the Placer County Water Agency.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Donlin.
Good morning.
North Delta Water Agency and Reclamation Districts 999, 2060, and 2068. If we can please promote Mr. Cho. And Mr. Cho, you're welcome to come off mute and come on camera and say good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. Austin Cho of Downey Brand on behalf of North Delta Water Agency and Reclamation Districts 999, 2060, and 2068.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Next, I have Yolo County. Do I have any representatives from Yolo County? If we could please bring up Ms. Meserve. And you're welcome to come on camera and off mute.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Kinsey. I am not the formal representative for Yolo County, but I know Mr. Pogletich may not be able to join today, so I will be willing to be in his stead. Should I go ahead and move on to the other folks?
Yes, please. You're next on my list, so please.
Okay, thank you. I'm here today for Contra Costa County Water Agency, County of San Joaquin, County of Solano, Stillwater Orchards, Frank Lorette's, Friends of Stone Lakes, local agencies of the North Delta, Worcester Ranches. I imagine Save Our Sandhill Cranes may not have a representative today, and I'm not sure about Sacramento County Farm Bureau, so I can pass information on to those folks as well.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
City of Antioch. Do we have a representative from the City of Antioch today? City of Sacramento and Diablo Water District. San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority. Please promote Ms. Harms. And if you would, you're welcome to come on camera and go off mute and introduce yourself.
Good morning, Rebecca Harms on behalf of the San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority.
Good morning, thank you. Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. Let's please bring up Mr. Keel. And Mr. Keel, you're welcome to come off mute and go on camera.
Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. Peter Keel for Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District. I'm joined by my colleague, Vince Goebel.
And Mr. Goebel, you're welcome to introduce yourself. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Officer Kinsey, Vincent Goebel on behalf of Tulare Lake Basin Water Storage District.
Thank you. Good morning. Coachella Valley Water District. Mr. Krieger If we can please bring, well, we heard from Mr. Krieger. So Mr. Krieger, can we unmute? I'll look to my team. Oh, here he is. Now you can unmute and speak, please.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Kenzie. Miles Krieger for Coachella Valley Water District.
Wonderful. Good morning. Thank you. Desert Water Agency. I had a note on this one that there might be some confusion, but I have Pescadero Reclamation District number 2058. I think that's a separate entity. Do I have anyone from the Pescadero Reclamation District? Save the California Delta Alliance and Hood Community Council. We can please promote Mr. Brodsky. And you're welcome to come off mute and come on camera.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Kinsey. It's Michael Brodsky on behalf of Save the California Delta Alliance and the Hood Community Council. And just a very quick question. I don't have anything prepared for today, so I would like to sign off and go over to Zoom. But if one of the witnesses should say something unexpected, perhaps on cross or redirect, and I would need to get back in, can I rejoin later, or do I need
Yes,
to stay
we
on?
won't lock you out. You can join and you will be in attendee status, so you would need to join and raise your hand, but that
Okay.
would get my attention.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. And good morning. Next, I have the Farm Bureau Delta Caucus, Sacramento County Farm Bureau, and Russell Van Lobensel's. And I think Ms. Meserve mentioned we may not have someone. Environmental Council of Sacramento and Habitat 2020. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Going backwards. Let's please promote Ms. McDowell. And this is with respect to the Farm Bureau Delta Caucus et al. You would please turn on your camera and come off mute and introduce yourself.
Amber McDowell with the Farm Bureau Delta Caucus and Sacramento County Farm Bureau.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
And then I will call again Environmental Council of Sacramento and Habitat 2020. Buena Vista Rancheria of Miwok Indians, Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, Winnemem Wintu Tribe, Little Manila Rising, and Restore the Delta. And if we can, good morning, Ms. Thompson, you're welcome to come off mute and introduce yourself.
Good morning. I'm Naji Thompson. I'm a certified student attorney with the Yale Environmental Justice Law and Advocacy Clinic. I work under the direction of Stephanie Safdie, who's also on the call today. She's my supervising attorney. I'm here appearing on behalf of the DTEC parties, who are, as you stated, Buena Vista Rancheria of Miwok Indians, Shingle Spring Band of Miwok Indians, Winnemem Wintu Tribe, Little Manila Rising, and Restore the Delta. Later on today, we'll have some co-student attorneys who are joining the call, but they're not all currently on the call. Would you like me to state their names for appearances?
Please, that would be helpful.
Sure. So that'll be Tara Bear, Stephanie Proofer, Donna Castro, and Shella Cowdrey.
Thank you. And good morning, Ms. Thompson. And Ms. Safdie, please, if you would introduce yourself.
Good morning, Stephanie Safdie, supervising attorney with the Yale Environmental Justice Law and Advocacy Clinic, appearing on behalf of the Delta Tribal Environmental Coalition parties.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
California Indian Environmental Alliance. California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance. We can please promote Mr. Schutz. And if you would, please go off mute and come on camera, Mr. Schutz, and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Chris Schutz for the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance. I don't believe anyone from Aqua Alliance is on today, although I cannot see. And if not, I will report to that group in their stead.
Thank you, Mr. Schutz, and good morning. And next on my list is Aqua Alliance, so I'll just make that call to make sure we don't have anyone. Then next I have California Water Impact Network. Please promote Mr. Moore. And Mr. Moore, you're welcome to come off mute and come on camera, please.
Good morning, Roger Moore on behalf of the California Water Impact Network.
Thank you. Good morning. Friends of the River. Please promote Mr. Bodker. And Mr. Bodker, you're welcome to come on camera and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Officer Kinsey. Gary Bobker, appearing on behalf of Friends of the River.
Thank you. Good morning. And I apologize for I know we had a service list issue and it should be fixed, and hopefully that's been reflected that you are now included. So
Yes, thank you very much.
and good morning. Save California Salmon. Sierra Club et al., which includes, including Center for Biological Diversity, Planning and Conservation League, and North Coast Rivers Alliance. Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Association and the Institute for Fisheries Resources. Oh, I'm sorry, I went too fast. If we can please promote Mr. Bussey. And if you would please come off mute and turn on your video. Good morning.
Good morning. This is John Bussey, Center for Biological Diversity, appearing on behalf of the center as well as North Coast Rivers Alliance. I thought we had appearances on behalf of the other groups you mentioned, but perhaps not.
And do you happen to know, would that be Mr. Wright?
Yes, for Sierra Club.
Okay. We will keep an eye out for Mr. Wright. Thank you and good morning. Pacific Coast Federation of Fishermen's Association and the Institute for Fisheries Resources. Golden State Salmon Association. San Francisco Baykeeper. Please promote Mr. Busher. And Mr. Busher, you're welcome to come on video, come on camera, and unmute.
Good morning, Hearing Officer Kinsey. Eric Busher for San Francisco Baykeeper, and either I or the Yale Law Clinic will report back for California Indian Environmental Alliance and Golden State Salmon Association.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good morning, Mr. Busher. Deirdre Desjardins. If we would please promote Ms. Desjardins. And Ms. Desjardins, if you're listening, there we go. You're welcome to come off mute and on video.
Hello, I'm here for representing myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome. Save Our Sandhill Cranes. I realize we may not have a representative. I know Ms. Meserve mentioned this, but do we have someone from Save Our Sandhill Cranes? Next, I have San Joaquin Audubon Society. And I believe that will be Mr. You're going to tell me, is it Freeze or Fries? If we can please promote Mr. Fries. And you're welcome to come on camera and off mute and introduce yourself.
I'm unmuted, but I can't get on video.
On video, if you click right next to unmute, or your video is just not working. Do you have that? Your video is on. Let's see.
I think it should be working, but anyhow, my name is Dave Freeze, and I'm representing San Joaquin Audubon Society.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Freeze. Next, I have the large group, Camp Lotus, All Outdoors, California Whitewater Rafting, American River Touring Association, American Whitewater, California Canoe and Kayak, California Outdoors, Foothill Conservancy, Motherlode River Center, Oars California Rafting, Restoring the Stanislaus River, Sierra Mac River Trips, South Yuba River Citizens League, Tuolumne River Trust, and the Upper Merced Watershed Council. Do we have anyone representing any of those parties? Mr. Bobker, if we can please at least let Mr. Bobker go off mute. There we go.
Thank you, Officer Kenzie. I don't directly represent those parties, but we, Friends of the River, is associated with that protest, and I can report back.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And then it looks to me like we have this is the new process here, but we have a number of people, and it may be that it took a little time to come into the room. A number of people on the attendee list who may not have had a chance to introduce themselves. Let me go in no particular order here. I will start. It looks like we have Mr. Keeling. I don't believe we heard from Mr. Keeling, so if we can please promote Mr. Keeling so he can introduce himself. And Mr. Keeling, you're welcome to come on camera and introduce yourself this morning.
Good morning, Ms. Kinsey. I am delighted to be promoted. I've been waiting for this for many years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I am co-counsel with Ms. Meserve for the County of San Joaquin.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Keeling.
Bye-bye.
And Mr. Berliner, if we can please promote also Mr. Berliner. And Mr. Berliner, you're welcome to come off mute and come on video and say good morning.
Good morning. I'm just watching the proceeding.
And Mr. Berliner, if you would please, if you wouldn't mind, if you're not going to be participating, to move over to the YouTube, that would be much.
Okay.
It helps us, slim down our hearing room, which gives us additional security. So I would appreciate it very much.
I will do that. Thanks very much.
I also see we have Molly Colton. I'm not sure about your affiliation, Ms. Colton, but if we can, oh, she may have left the room. And I'm just going down my list of those who have not had a chance to introduce themselves. I see Ms. Berrigan Perea, if we would please promote Ms. Berrigan-Perea. And you're welcome to come on camera and unmute yourself and say good morning.
Good morning. can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't figure out how to make my video work.
Okay.
Okay. But I was trying to see if I need to join in the system through this way. I think I'm going to go watch it on YouTube for today.
Okay. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And as I call names, my team says it's really helpful if you raise your hand when I call the name. That helps them find you. Next on my list, I have Ms. Buckman, Carrie Buckman. We can please, Ms. Carroll.
Yes, Ms. Buckman is currently in the room with us, but she is not appearing on video today.
Okay.
Should we say that we're using? Yeah, we're using her login for our conference room television so that we can see.
Okay.
Thank
you very much. Next, I have Colin Chandler. Colin Chandler, if you can please raise your hand or someone raise, let's see. Yes, and we'll bring them into the room. You're welcome to come off mute and put your video on. Say good morning.
Yeah, Colin Chandler on behalf of the Department of Water Resources.
Thank you. Good morning. And I see Kate LeBach, who we had referenced earlier, but I'm not sure. It looks like you didn't have a chance to introduce yourself. So we will go ahead, please promote her so she can come on camera. And you're welcome to come off mute and on camera, please.
Good morning, hearing officer. My camera is giving me a little trouble, but I will be attending and participating with the Bureau of Reclamation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. Next, I have Mariah Lauritsen. If you would please, if you are able to raise your hand, that helps us. And if you would please promote. I'm sorry, turn off you are now promoted. If you would please turn off your unmute and turn on your camera and say good morning.
Hi, this is Mariah with Golden State Salmon Association.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thanks.
I'm looking through my list and I want confirmation from my team. I believe we have spoken to everyone and nope, I have Mr. Artis. We can promote Scott Artis.
Good morning, Officer Kinsey. This is Scott Artis with Golden State Salmon Association, and I'll be mostly participating via YouTube today.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you.
And I believe we have everyone has had a chance to say hello. All right, with that, I know that was a long process. Thank you for your patience. Oh, no, we have one more. And if you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, please raise your hand. That would help all of us. Do we have one more? No, I think everyone is accounted for. Okay. All right, with that, I'd like to go through a couple of procedural issues. Hopefully this will be relatively brief before we get started with opening statements from the Department of Water Resources. As we do this, most of you have attendee status. If you would like to speak, please just raise your hand. Because it's a procedural discussion, we'll just do it by audio only. I think that's just as efficient with this, and then it'll help us move forward. Again, we'll get used to these procedures, and I appreciate your patience. As I mentioned, the AHO will be issuing a fourth amended notice of hearing. It's set to go out, but my team is here in the room with us today, so you'll see it tomorrow. That addresses some of the outstanding procedural requests, the requests for postponement and things. There's the remainder of elements of the request from the public agency protestants from March 10th. There's the March 27th letter from DTEC et al. And San Francisco Baykeeper. I would ask that we limit our discussion today about those issues once you've seen the ruling. If there are remaining outstanding items that you think that need to be addressed, then please bring them to my attention and we can talk about that on April 7th when we reconvene. I did want to note my expectation, at least my understanding of the order of presentation of witnesses, that we will start with panel 1. And once we've completed cross-examination and redirect, we will move to panel 5, but we will not get to panel 5 before April 8th. So if we are quite efficient and get through panel 1 in the next 2 days, we wouldn't start panel 5 until April 8th. After that, we will move to panel 2, but that would be no sooner than April 17th. So and I think you've seen those rulings already reflected, but I wanted to confirm that. I also have a note here that my team is creating upload credentials for protestants. We hadn't done that yet. We are working on that, and those should be emailed to you individually, and that's what you will use to upload exhibits when you get to that point. And those are individualized to each party or group of parties. So expect to be receiving those. I also wanted to note that the fourth amended hearing notice will add the additional hearing dates that I identified in May in my prior email rulings, as well as adding May 19th for policy statements. And I do ask in that ruling about panel 3. I think our timing on panel 3 could be tight because of some of the conflicts in May. I'm not looking to resolve that today, but I just wanted to bring it up that at some point, once we see how the flow of this hearing, I think we'll know more once we understand how quickly we move, how we're going to account for panel 3. And that's a possibility where we may have, we may need to reorder if necessary. So I wanted to put everyone on notice of that potential. With that said, are there any other procedural issues that we should talk about now before we move to opening statements? And I see Ms. Thompson has raised her hand. We'll start with Ms. Thompson and then move to Mr. Cho, please.
Sorry, when you have to rejoin, you kind of missed the last bit that you cut off. We're starting with me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I would like to just state a general objection on behalf of my clients and our co-protestants. We reassert our objections that conducting the evidentiary hearings without the forthcoming update to the Bay Delta water quality standards, which will likely materially shape how the DCP can operate or even preclude its operations altogether. This update is also subject to the ongoing and unresolved federal civil rights investigation into the board's administration of the Bay Delta governance plans, and protestants should have the opportunity to examine DWR's witnesses on the consequences of these key regulatory standards as they relate to their testimony. The insistence on proceeding with DWR's case in chief without this long-awaited update is still forthcoming, interjects significant additional layers of uncertainty into this hearing process and is unnecessary given that DWR's petitions for extension of time to perfect its water rights have not yet been accepted as complete. We also have one second general objection. We continue to object to the decision to conduct direct and cross-examinations for every one of DWR's case in chief witnesses before DWR has responded to the AHO's repeated requests for supplemental information. DWR's failure to respond to these simple and material information requests is inexcusable, and protestants have promptly submitted a motion to cancel the DWR's petitions under under Water Code Section 1701.4, which has been submitted directly to the board on March 19th, and it remains pending. So it's improper to proceed with an evidentiary hearings before the board has made a ruling on this motion. And we also would like to reiterate our inability to cross DWR's witnesses on these missing water information. It will leave material gaps in the evidentiary record, and that may preclude the board from being able to reach an eventual decision on DWR's application.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. And that does bring up a point, which I did want to note, that there are some, there is this motion for cancellation that is outstanding. And this is addressed in the fourth amended hearing notice. It's noted it's with the board and not with the AHO. So my intent is to move forward as in accordance with the AHO's schedule while those matters are pending with the board. But I did want to note that they are out there. With that, I will turn to Mr. Cho.
Thank you, Ms. Kenzie. This is just a procedural question in light of the fact that protestants have not yet been given uploading credentials. Is there a preferred process for cross-examination exhibits and how those will be shared and uploaded to the AHO?
So I'm corrected by my team. It sounds like the protestants already have received or should have received upload credentials. However, you can also email cross-examination exhibits to the DCP email address, and we can pull them from there, although uploading them is preferred. If you can, if you indeed have those credentials.
Were those individually emailed to parties? I was looking through the hearing notice and didn't see a specific link.
No, they were individually emailed because the passwords are individual to the parties.
It may be in my inbox somewhere. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Busher. And you should, hopefully my team, yep, there we go.
Thank you, Ms. Kenzie. I just had a couple of logistical questions. Are we going to be doing appearances each day like that?
For now, yes.
Okay. And I understand that if a colleague is going to log in instead or in addition to me, they would need their separate link and credentials. And if they haven't already received those, they would have to join the service list and ask for those from the AHO.
Yes, they don't, I mean, you can decide whether to join the service list, but we are maintaining a attendee list. And so you can ask for credentials and those can come out quickly. I mean, if during this is a good point of clarification. If during the hearing today, any of you have, alternatives who need to step in, we can fairly quickly send them an individualized link. So if you email our office, we can do that.
Thank you. And are the individualized links device specific, or can I use the same link on several different devices?
No, it's device specific.
Okay. So if I need to switch computers, I need to get a new link for that as well.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you. And then the last question are, for the people who are going to be cross-examining witnesses, will they be as attendees for the all day until their portion of the cross-examination starts, or will certain people be promoted to panelists sooner than that?
My intent is that when we get to the point of cross-examination, the panelists will be the witnesses, the attorney representing the party associated with the witnesses, and then the cross-examining attorney or attorneys, if there is essentially the same party or group of parties. We could promote all of those to panelists, but it would be a limited group. Does that make sense?
I think so. So, for example, while Mr. Ruiz cross-examines or Mr. Herrick cross-examines a witness today, would I be an attendee or a panelist?
You would be an attendee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Busher. Ms. Desjardins. Please. You're welcome to come off mute. Oh, you're still, looks like you're now back on mute. There we go.
I wanted to ask that if you are going to proceed with the hearing without canceling it, that you consider allowing discovery with the Department of Water Resources about the water, the information that was requested. So there's a formal process in the hearing in which the information is requested and the hearing can't continue until it's provided, or, you know, or there's, because the problem is that all of these informal requests are being ignored by DWR. My own protest at DWR was with respect to some information about climate change and about the Community Benefits Fund, and DWR never even responded to it. So it's very difficult for protestants. And the other issue is it's relying on a future assumption that operations will be the same. And yet the Trump administration is a market change and there may be ongoing discussions. The other issue was the Public Records Act request. DWR hadn't responded in a timely way to the modeling, and there was likely, I think, an issue of not being forthcoming in their representations when there were discussions about the hearing schedule. I think that the DWR would have had to know about the incidental take permit coming out and there being new modeling. And yet the schedule was confirmed without disclosing that. And then that created substantial prejudice to the protestants. And this happened in the previous hearing. There was new information, again, I think about the ITP, new proposed operations. And some of the protestants had to subpoena the modeling. There was a sense of shock. It was the Sacramento Valley protestants, and they were like, why didn't you tell us this was coming out? And it was an enormous burden on the protestants because they had to respond to some very, very technical information, paying experts when DWR had internal knowledge that it was subject to change. And the director of the Department of Water Resources,
Ms. Desjardins, I would ask you to stay focused. Let's stay focused on this proceeding and for this proceeding.
Yeah, I know it's this proceeding, but it's a pattern of conduct. And I'm seeing that pattern repeated here. So, the director of Department of Water Resources has said that they're in discussions with the Trump administration about joint CVP, SWP operations. So it's very material, and there's an evidentiary issue that all of the information should be available for people, for protestants to make their cases. And it's not being available with the current hearing procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desjardins. Ms. Carroll, would you like to respond to that? We cannot hear you. There we go.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Hearing Officer Kinsey. I just wanted to respond that we have tried to contact Ms. Desjardins at least twice and have not received any reply. I invite her to contact me directly at my email or my phone number. I'm happy to provide both to you. I will email those to you after the hearing. We are directed to provide the supplemental information by May 27th, and we're required to produce witnesses for cross on June 10th and 11th, and we intend to do so. So that information will be forthcoming. With respect to the Public Records Act request, we timely responded within 10 days. We also responded not only to the requester, but to the entire service list with that information. Also, with respect to the incidental take permit, we don't issue that permit. We are reliant on the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to issue that permit to us. And we're relying on the information provided by them when we were working with all of you for scheduling. So just wanted to make those clarifications.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. I did want to note, just for all the parties here, that we did, the AHO did upload the response from DWR to the Public Records Act request that is on the, it should be on the FTP folder. It should be in a separate, I'll look to my team. What is the folder called? If you can tell me quickly.
Water modeling files.
Water modeling files. There we go. So you can find it there. I also wanted to note, and this is in our fourth amended hearing notice, but I had not made you aware yet, so I'll say it now. We are working, the AHO is working with the Division of Water Rights to digitize the diversion and use reports from for the permits at issue in this proceeding. And we do intend to have those in the administrative record and posted by April 28th. So at least that information will be available before May 27th. So this is just the information that's been filed with the State Water Board, but we are working on digitizing those and making those available. So I thought this was an appropriate time to note that to everyone. And Ms. Tabor, please.
Okay, I don't. Okay, great. Thanks. Just asking me to join as a panelist. I would like to object to DWR's new slide deck that apparently was uploaded to the FTP site without notice to the parties. And I'd like to ask for clarification from the hearing officer about the procedures required for evidence that's being used in support of case in chief. I apologize, I didn't see it in the hearing notice, but I'm in the sites hearing. At least it's been my observation that parties notify this service list when information is uploaded to the FTP site, not cross-exam exhibits, but documents that they're relying on for their case in chief or rebuttal testimony. So I'd like to lodge that objection, ask that they not be allowed to use that slide deck today in the hearing. And if the hearing officer could please clarify for the parties what the obligations are in terms of notice and also just the timing. If you intend to submit something for your case in chief, are you allowed to submit things after the deadline that you will be for submittal of your case in chief that you will be using in your presentation? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tabor. And I will look to Ms. Carroll to clarify for me, if you would please, first of all, whether the slide deck, is that to be used for opening statements or is it for the witnesses?
That's correct. It's only for my opening statement. The witness slide decks were previously submitted timely with our exhibits.
And and you had said this before, I think, but if you can clarify, the slides are, you're representing our figures or visuals that are from the evidentiary record?
That's correct. They're from the exhibits previously submitted.
Okay. So with that, thank you. I think to the extent they're objected to, I'll note that they would be non-evidentiary in nature because they're coming in with opening statements. So we would consider the slide deck to be non-evidentiary. Just as a matter of clarification, Ms. Carroll, can you let me know, when did those come in?
I believe we submitted them prior to the last hearing date, so prior to March 24th.
Okay. Excuse me. So with that, and I had not, excuse me, I had not previously addressed this. I will allow parties to use a slide deck for opening statements if those slides are representations from the exhibits. I think that's appropriate, and we've done that in the past. They are non-evidentiary, so they would not come in as evidence regardless. I think the appropriate way, and let me try to make sure I get all to all of your points, Ms. Tabor. I do think it's, I would ask the parties if you are uploading something other than a cross-examination exhibit, if you are uploading something that you intend to use during the hearing, if you would, and that's not in accordance with our normal deadlines, right? If you have a deadline for case in chief exhibits, we will move those over at the AHO. The parties will know that they're there. But if you're sort of off kilter on the deadline so that it's something that would not necessarily come to the attention of the other parties, if you would please send an email to the service list notifying them, that would be a courtesy. And we at the AHO will try to follow up on our end if that doesn't happen, if there is no notice to the service list of on our end notifying the service list when we move something over from the upload folder that's not on our normal deadline schedule. That's something we can do going forward, but I will allow parties to use a slide deck for opening statements with the understanding that those are non-evidentiary in substance. Ms. Tabor, back to you, please.
Thank you. So just to be insultingly explicit and make sure I understand,
please.
The slide decks will not be moved into evidence at any slide decks that are used to summarize presentation will be purely for presentation purposes, but will not be moved into evidence by the parties at the conclusion of their case in chief. Is that?
I don't think that's correct. My understanding is that slide decks used by representatives, which usually will be attorneys, as I believe, to make opening statements will not be moved into the evidentiary record, but slide decks that are used by witnesses to summarize their direct testimony may be moved into the evidentiary record.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carroll, did you have follow-up on that?
No, that's correct. I have another question that can wait. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to get back to Ms. Desjardins. I know she may be following up on some of these issues. So Ms. Desjardins, please.
Yes, I wanted to just bring the hearing officer's attention to the response to my protest. And the written response itself was non-responsive. It just objected to the protest and reserved the right to respond later. And it sort of didn't create a basis for any kind of good faith discussion about the protest. And I did request in previous hearings to say, you know, there needs to be an actual written response. There was a contact by Ms. Morris where she emailed me and said, we're not sure of what kind of information you would be seeking, but my written protest was fairly explicit about the kind of information I would be seeking. Some of the protest was about corruption in the Community Benefit Fund. And there were very early discussions about it that were much earlier than DWR has been publicly represented. And I don't think that information will come out simply by Public Records Act request. So I haven't known how to proceed. There hasn't been a way for me to get the necessary information, or even to there's very limited cross-examination in this proceeding as well. So that makes it difficult. I did in the other proceeding, I have previously subpoenaed witnesses to examine. And I could do that, but again, the time limitations of, I have a total of 4 hours, make it difficult. So that's both for cross-examination of these panels and for my own case. So that's why that was the other reason why I requested being able to do some subpoenas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Desjardins.
Subpoenas to Ms. Teckham and the other proceeding. Thank you.
Understood. Ms. Desjardins, here's what I think the path forward would be is one, to please meet and confer with DWR's legal team and have a discussion about the information that you're seeking. That's the typical process for attorneys when there are disputes about discovery, if you will, that to discuss the information that's requested and see if you can work out an agreement on how you might move forward. I did want to clarify at one point on the time limits, which you mentioned, which is the time limits that I've set are only for this portion of the proceeding. It's only for with respect to DWR's case in chief. When we get to the cases in chief from protestants, there will be different blocks of time. So the time here is for cross-examination and objection to DWR's presentation of its case in chief. And then after, what I would lay out as the path forward, if after meeting and conferring with DWR, you still have outstanding requests that are relevant to the issues in this proceeding and are related to discovery. I realize you're not an attorney, so it may you may need some direction in the specific process, but if you can submit in writing what your request would be and what path forward you would be seeking, I think that would be the best way to proceed so that we can use our hearing time efficiently, but we can address those in writing. So if you would please meet and confer, and then we can go from there.
I did work closely with attorneys in the other hearing, and I did work with them to write subpoena duces tecum, and I do know how to do that, representing myself in an efficient way, specifying very clearly the scope of what was sought. I just found that formal process to be much more productive than Public Records Act requests in the other proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Desjardins. Let's go to Mr. Brodsky, and then I will turn to Ms. Carroll.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I was just confused because the camera didn't go on.
Yeah.
Most of my questions about the cross exhibits have already been answered, but just to make sure I understand correctly, for cross exhibits provided to the AHO either through email or upload preferred, notice to the service list is not required.
Correct.
Okay. And then the second thing on timing, cross examination is a dynamic process. The witness may say something in the morning that would prompt me to upload an additional exhibit for use in the afternoon. There's not a particular 48 hours ahead or anything like that.
No, we're pretty quick on the draw on those.
Okay. Thank you very much. That answers all my questions.
Thank you. And also just to add to that, if you were to upload an exhibit and not end up using it on cross, we would not move it over into the administrative record. It would just, we'd ultimately end up deleting it. So that's generally how that works. If the exhibit is not used, it does not enter our permanent record for the proceeding.
Okay, good to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Carroll.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the service list. You made a comment that you had people who were to be officially served, but you also had an interested parties list. I was wondering if that was separated in the next hearing notice, and if we could have clarification, because I think we're over serving people. We have over 170 people when we send out our emails, and I'm noticing that others are more around 130. So I was making sure that we had consistency in who was receiving the documents.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. And this is an important point. We have a service list, and I don't off the top of my head know the number on that, but we can make sure that we're send up a follow-up email to make sure we're clear about which is the service list, which are the representatives of the parties and those who have been asked explicitly to be placed on the service list to receive all of the communications that are shared in this proceeding. We also have an interested persons list. This has been developed over time and in part has grown lately because of the notices of intent to appear from members of the public. So that is separate from the service list. We have used it at the AHO to communicate about our public policy statements, and that's been the purpose of that. I'm trying to limit our use of it because these are individuals who certainly don't want all of the traffic about this proceeding, or at least I don't think they do. If they do, they're welcome to join the service list. So let me follow up, Ms. Carroll, and see if my team can very clearly specify which is the service list, which is the legal obligation to send any communication to.
Greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to look to the room. Our next step will be opening statements, I believe. Are there any? We'll look to see if there are any hands before we move to opening statements. A couple comments before we get there, just so we're all aware. Ms. Mullen of the AHO will be handling screen sharing of exhibits for the witnesses today and for cross-examination and moving along of slides if there are slide decks. If you are a witness, you may simply ask Ms. Mullen to advance to the next slide when you're ready during your testimony. And attorneys, you may ask Ms. Mullen directly to please bring up a particular exhibit today. We have a member of the AHO team who is timing presentations and cross-examination today, and we will maintain a time tracker of each group's time. It won't necessarily be updated daily, but at least weekly, so all of you can have a sense of where you are, and we can check in on that. We also have an expected order of proceeding with respect to witness panels. I referenced that earlier this morning. But we have posted a calendar on the AHO webpage for this proceeding, which is essentially a calendar of the witnesses to come and when they're generally expected. And then also a retrospective calendar with links to the YouTube videos for witnesses we have already heard from. And that's for your convenience. And we found it to be convenient on our end, which is why we made it publicly available. This file will be posted as a PDF to the AHO webpage, so you can find it there. That's a little different than what we did for sites. We found the PDF is easy. We can update it faster. So we're trying to move as quickly as possible. And then generally today, as we move to each panel of witnesses, I do plan to ask for estimates of time for cross-examination. So if each of the cross-examining groups can work together to have an estimate of time ready before we get to the panels, I would very much appreciate that. And with that, I think what I'd like to do, since we're at a convenient time, I know we want to move forward, but at least for the court reporter's sake, let's go ahead and take a 6-minute break. Please don't leave the room, but we will come back at 10:25 and pick up with opening statements. 6:25, I'll look first to our court reporter. Are you ready for us to go back on the record?
Yes, I am, Hearing Officer Quincy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I did notice we have, looks like some new folks who we have not yet identified in our attendee status. So I did want to invite them to come on camera and introduce themselves. I first have Brett Baker. If you are listening, if you would please raise your hand and we can promote you. Looking to my team to, and Mr. Baker, if you're listening, you have to accept the promotion status, as I understand it. All right, Mr. Baker may not be with us. I will turn back. I don't see anyone else at this time. I thought I had someone else. I'm sorry. Okay, we will move on from there. I believe it is time for opening statements, so I will look to Ms. Carroll, who we have, I believe, as a panelist already. Are you ready to make your opening statement?
I am ready when you are.
All right, and we should bring up your slide deck, if I understand right.
Yes, please. I'd appreciate that.
Thank you. And when you're ready, please proceed.
Hey, thank you very much. Good morning. Department of Water Resources appears before you to request approval to add 2 points of diversion and points of rediversion to its state water project water rights permits. Testimony and exhibits to support this request were timely submitted to the hearing officer and hearing team and were served upon the parties. As I previously stated, all visuals in this opening statement and the case in chief presentation were obtained from the Department of Water Resources and Administrative Hearing Officer exhibits. We've also just provided the slide presentation to the entire service list via email, so those should be in your email boxes. We could go to the next slide, please. The Delta Conveyance Project is one of California's most important climate adaptation projects. Changing precipitation patterns are leading to more rain, less snow, and a limited ability to capture and move water. The Delta Conveyance Project will adapt and modernize infrastructure in the State Water Project, which captures and moves water all over California, from the Bay Area to the Mexico border and communities in between. Next slide, please. The State Water Project is an affordable source of high quality, clean, and safe water for Californians and 750,000 acres of agriculture. If the State Water Project service area were a nation, it would represent the 8th largest economy in the world. It is an important foundation for an entire suite of water supply and resiliency programs implemented by local public water agencies. The Delta Conveyance Project will protect water supplies by capturing water when it's plentiful to better endure dry years and adapt to extreme weather. California's water delivery infrastructure system was built in the 20th century based on the certainty that snow would fall in the winter, be stored in the mountains as snowpack, melt in the spring into our rivers and reservoirs. Due to climate change, we are seeing a new weather pattern with more precipitation falling as rain and less as snow, and more water flowing through the rivers in the winter months. Because this water is not available to be captured in the spring, water managers must find a way to catch it in the winter for use later in the year or risk losing it altogether. The Delta Conveyance Project also protects against the threat posed by earthquakes, sea level rise, and levee failure. The United States Geologic Survey has identified a 72% probability of a greater than 6.7 magnitude earthquake by 2043. If Delta levees are damaged during a seismic event, the inflow of water into Delta Islands would carry saline water from the San Francisco Bay which would limit Delta water supplies for an extended time, potentially a year. Next slide, please. Based on the operating criteria in the final environmental impact report, had the project been operational during the storm events last year, the State Water Project could have captured about 941,000 acre-feet of water, enough water for over 9.8 million people, or nearly 3.3 million households for a full year. Last year had unexpectedly high regulatory restrictions at the South Delta because steelhead congregated near the State Water Project's South Delta diversion facilities. The flexibility to divert at a different location would have been valuable to stabilize water supplies while also protecting sensitive aquatic species. Next slide, please. The Delta Conveyance Project consists of the construction, operation, and maintenance of new State Water Project water diversion and conveyance facilities in the Delta that would be operated in coordination with existing State Water Project facilities. The Delta Conveyance Project is primarily located in the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta. The Delta Conveyance Project water conveyance facilities will begin at 2 intakes located on the Sacramento River near the communities of Hood and Cortland, and end at the existing Bethany Reservoir located on the California Aqueduct. The new water conveyance facilities would divert up to 6,000 cubic feet per second of water from those 2 new North Delta intakes through state-of-the-art fish screens. The water is then conveyed via a single tunnel on an eastern alignment directly to a new pumping plant and aqueduct complex between Byron Highway and Mountain House Road near Mountain House in the South Delta, discharging to the Bethany Reservoir for delivery to existing State Water Project export facilities. The total length of the tunnel is approximately 45 miles. The facilities are designed to withstand a 200-year flood event and 10.2 feet of sea level rise. Next slide, please. Shown in this slide is a schematic of the new facilities to implement the Delta Conveyance Project. It consists of surface and groundwater features. Permanent surface features include intakes on the Sacramento River, tunnel boring machine launch and retrieval shafts, tunnel maintenance shafts, reusable tunnel material storage sites, and a pumping plant to move water from the end of the tunnel to Bethany Forebay on the California Aqueduct. Permanent underground components include the water conveyance tunnel and a secondary underground pipeline connecting the Delta Conveyance Project tunnel to water conveyance facilities owned and operated by Contra Costa Water District. Other facilities include new electric transmission lines, supervisory control and data acquisition or SCADA communication lines, new access roadways for the sole purpose of transporting materials to construction sites, and improvements to existing roadways to improve access and safety. Major temporary facilities include the concrete batching plants near the Twin Cities complex and at the Bethany complex. Next slide, please. For the purposes of this proceeding, the 2 river intakes located on the east bank of the Sacramento River are a focal point of the Delta Conveyance Project. One intake will be located between the communities of Hood and Cortland at River Mile 36.8, and another upstream of Hood at River Mile 39.4. Next slide, please. The intakes, with a completed footprint of approximately 109 and 123 acres respectively, consist of fish screens, flow control gates controlling the amount of water diverted from the Sacramento River, sedimentation basins, flow control gates controlling the amount of water discharged to the tunnel from the sedimentation basins, inlet shafts to the tunnel, and sediment drying lagoons. One of the inlet shafts will also serve as a tunnel boring machine retrieval shaft during tunnel construction. The fish screens and housing will be the predominant feature on the river side of the intakes with an approximate length of 960 feet and will extend approximately 12 feet into the existing river channel. State Route 160 will cross the portions of the intake structure housing the fish screens and control gates. Lands adjacent to the intakes will be protected from flooding by levees constructed around the intakes, meeting U.S. Army Corps of Engineering and Central Valley Flood Protection Board criteria. Next slide, please. The operations commitments that the Department of Water Resources has made for when the Delta Conveyance project becomes operational are summarized in the revised operations plan submitted as Exhibit DWR-0805R. These commitments are also found in the final environmental impact report certified in December 2023. The Delta Conveyance Project incidental take permit application submitted to the California Department of Fish and Wildlife in April 2024, and operational refinements included in the incidental take permit issued by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife on February 14, 2025. While the Delta Conveyance Project operations will be integrated into the State Water Project operations, there are several key operational parameters that will apply to how the Delta Conveyance Project North Delta intakes will be used once it is constructed and operational. In the Department of Water Resources case in chief, you will hear expert testimony on the specifics of these operations. Importantly, the Delta Conveyance Project will not change operational criteria associated with upstream reservoirs. Upstream facilities will continue to be operated to meet existing regulatory, environmental, and contractual obligations consistent with existing State Water Project operations. The Delta Conveyance Project is not proposing to increase the total quantity of water permitted for diversion under existing Department of Water Resources water rights. As State Water Project deliveries decline over the coming decades, the Delta Conveyance Project is meant to ameliorate those declines. This project is not about diverting more water in general, but rather it is about recovering future losses. Further, the Department of Water Resources and the Bureau of Reclamation have entered into a mutual support agreement. This can be found as Exhibit DWR-01102. This agreement provides a process and establishes the timing pursuant to which the potential water supply impacts of the Delta Conveyance Project will be considered and, where necessary, appropriate mitigation developed. The agreement also establishes and affirms obligations regarding the review of the Coordinated Operations Agreement prior to operation of the Delta Conveyance Project and the mitigation of potential water supply impacts. Next slide, please. During development of the Environmental Impact Report, the Department of Water Resources considered alternatives that could meet the objectives and potentially reduce the significant environmental impacts of the Delta Conveyance Project. These alternatives included alternatives suggested by members of the public through scoping. The Environmental Impact Report documents the alternatives considered and whether they were carried forward for detailed evaluation. Some protestants have suggested that an alternative could improve levees in the Delta to shore up the ability to continue diversions from the State Water Project's South Delta facilities. Solely upgrading levees is not a realistic way to protect the reliability of State Water Project deliveries. It would not address rising sea levels, would not adapt to changing precipitation patterns and extreme weather, and would not guard water supplies against earthquakes. The existing State Water Project facilities are currently limited to one diversion point in the South Delta that will continue to be constrained by location, fish and water quality restrictions, and capacity. The ability to capture high flows when available is critical to adapting to a changing climate. Upgrading levees would not resolve those limitations and would not protect the long-term viability of the State Water Project. However, the Department of Water Resources has invested millions of dollars to reinforce Delta levees through various projects and programs and will continue to support these efforts. In developing the Delta Conveyance Project, Department of Water Resources sent 121 letters and consulted with 13 tribes. The Department of Water Resources participated in 150 government-to-government meetings with tribes. Additionally, the Department of Water Resources extensive informal outreach with tribal communities, including an environmental justice survey, informational meetings, tours, and site visits. A log of these events can be found as Administrative Hearing Officer Exhibit AHO-1201. During tribal consultation, tribes emphasize the relationship between natural and human-made features that, when taken together, constitute a geographically defined cultural landscape. Considering these interconnections is very important and led the Department of Water Resources to conclude that the Delta as a whole is a tribal cultural landscape that is a large, complex, multi-component tribal cultural resource. To avoid and minimize impacts to the Delta tribal cultural landscape, the Department of Water Resources has committed through mitigation and in proposed permit terms to conducting tribal pre-construction surveys for all ground disturbing activities, having tribal monitoring of all ground disturbing activities, setting aside land designated to reinter ancestral remains and associated burial items, cultural materials, and other items of cultural importance that may be at risk of disturbance. Protecting and preserving land designation, including access rights in perpetuity. Involving tribes in restoration planning efforts and providing access to designated spaces in the restored areas for cultural purposes in perpetuity. As the planning process was first initiated, the Department of Water Resources tasked the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority with 10 engineering objectives to avoid or minimize effects of the project on Delta communities and environment. For example, minimize activities that produce noise, dust, greenhouse gas emissions, traffic, and land use disturbances, and minimize effects on Delta water-based recreation and navigation. As a part of this task, the Delta Conveyance Design and Construction Authority convened a stakeholder engagement committee to focus on possible design choices to avoid or minimize impacts. As a result of this effort, potential effects have been greatly minimized or avoided entirely, including moving the underground tunnel route out of the central delta and closer to Interstate 5, eliminating most barging and all barge landings, reducing pile driving, undergrounding power near sandhill crane habitat, minimizing acreage needed to store tunnel material, creating a design with no need for a new intermediate forebay, and overall reducing the project footprint, among others. In addition, the Department of Water Resources has committed to the creation of a $200 million community benefits program. That can be found in Administrative Hearing Officer Exhibits AHO-1014 and 1015. The community benefit program includes 4 elements. First, the Delta Community Fund, grant funding for a broad array of community prioritized projects in the Delta. Examples of project categories include, but are not limited to, recreation, water and air quality, public safety, emergency response, habitat conservation, culture and history, economy, infrastructure, education, and workforce development, and levee maintenance and improvement. The second element is economic development, targeted hiring, job training, and business participation programs realized through construction of the project. Third is integrative benefits, commitments to modify and convert temporary infrastructure or other construction-related features for continued public use and benefit. Fourth and finally is the community benefits agreements. These agreements with specific communities identifying benefits unique to that community that could be achieved through any combination of the 3 program elements defined above or similar components. Participation in the community benefits program is not seen by the Department of Water Resources as a sign of support for the project, and in no way prevents the continued ability to oppose the project. It is, however, a recognition that while benefits are throughout the state, impacts are local. The Department of Water Resources' intent is to provide tangible, and lasting benefits to local communities that will experience construction effects. Next slide, please. Based on the feedback received through the coordination I've just described and through discussions held during the protest resolution period, the Department of Water Resources has submitted proposed permit conditions to apply to the Delta Conveyance project. The Department of Water Resources believes that these commitments address the issues raised by the protestants. The proposed permit conditions include both temporary construction terms and terms that would apply to operation. Commitments in the proposed permit terms address continued and ongoing tribal consultation and coordination, noise, traffic, biological issues, groundwater monitoring and mitigation, and air quality, just to name a few. Next slide, please. In our case in chief, you will hear from 5 panels. Panel 1, Modeling Tools, consists of Mr. Eric Reyes, Dr. Andy Draper, and Dr. Eli Ateljevich. They will discuss the modeling tools used by the Department of Water Resources to conduct the quantitative analysis. These tools include Calcim-3 and DSM-2, which are used to evaluate the differences between existing conditions and the Delta Conveyance project. This panel focuses on the selection and use of the models and does not provide modeling results for the Delta Conveyance project. The modeling results will be covered by panel 2. The next panel you'll hear from is panel number 5, Engineering Refinements. Mr. Adam Murdoch, Ms. Gwen Buchholz, and Mr. Jason Volk will participate on that panel. Panel 5 focuses on the engineering refinements incorporated into the project, designed based on the stakeholder feedback to address or eliminate concerns raised. Panel 5 also provides detailed information regarding the noise modeling, the thresholds chosen by DWR, and mitigation measures. We anticipate that panel 2 will follow panel 5, which is modeling results and groundwater. Dr. Ellen Priest, Mr. Amardeep Singh, Mr. Thomas Fitzhugh, and Dr. Tyler Hatch participate on panel 2. Panel 2 presents the modeling results and specifically covers compliance with the water quality standards set by the board to protect beneficial uses, water levels, duration and magnitude of reverse flows, water supplies, and the selection of the groundwater model and groundwater analysis. The groundwater analysis includes both quantitative and qualitative analysis and monitoring and mitigation commitments. The next anticipated panel is panel 3, composed of Dr. Maureen Greenwood and Ms. Rachel Gardner. Panel 3 is the biological panel and builds on the modeling results by looking at the potential impacts to aquatics and terrestrials. The aquatics analysis includes an update to incorporate the refinements to operational criteria set forth in the incidental take permit issued by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. While all terrestrials were analyzed in the final environmental impact report, the focus on the terrestrial testimony is on greater sandhill cranes, given the protestants' emphasis. Dr. Greenwood and Ms. Gardner's analysis demonstrates that the Delta Conveyance project would not unreasonably affect fish and wildlife, and that the project will avoid potential take of greater sandhill cranes. Finally, panel 4, our operations panel, is composed of Ms. Molly White and Mr. Bryant Georgie. Panel 4 will describe the operations detailed in the revised operations plan and how the Department of Water Resources operators coordinate with other agencies in order to operate the state water project, and ultimately the Delta Conveyance project, to meet water quality and other regulatory requirements. Additionally, panel 4 provides a look back of certain years and how the Delta Conveyance project would have been operated and the supply that would have been available based on the operating criteria in the incidental take permit application. Based on the evidence to be provided by the Department of Water Resources and the commitments it makes through the proposed permit terms, the board should grant the Department of Water Resources request to add the 2 points of diversion and points of rediversion to the Department of Water Resources existing water rights permits. The Department of Water Resources has submitted a proposed permit condition to ensure that its water rights are not expanded and would not initiate a new water right. As the evidence will show, with the mitigation and commitments made by the Department of Water Resources, there will be no harm to other legal users of water, including public trust resources such as fisheries, and the Delta Conveyance project is in the public interest. Thank you. That concludes DWR's opening statement.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. With that, Ms. Carroll, are you prepared to call the first panel of witnesses for DWR?
I am.
And I will look, my understanding to my, we have Mr. Reyes, Dr. Draper, and Dr. Atelovich. And if you would please promote these individuals. I also see that Mr. Busher has a hand raised. Mr. Busher, if, I don't know, my team can do only so many things at once, but there we go. Mr. Busher, if you would, please.
I just had a question for Ms. Carroll. Do you have an estimate for how long the the direct testimony will be for this panel?
And
yes, let me do some quick math and I will answer you just in a moment.
And in the meantime, the witnesses are welcome. Do I have Mr. Reyes? You're welcome to come on camera. And then we should also be getting Dr. Draper and Dr. Atelovich.
And to address Mr. Busher, we anticipate the testimony will take approximately 30 minutes.
Thank you, Ms. Carroll. And Dr. Draper, you're welcome to come on camera, please. My next step is to administer the oath once I have us grouped here. And Mr. Atelovich, if you could help us by raising your hand. Oh, you may all, but if you haven't, if you can raise your hand, that helps bump you to the top. There we go. And if you would, please come on camera. Thank you. I will go ahead and administer the oath. I will do this individually. So I will start with Mr. Reyes. Mr. Reyes, if you would please come off mute and raise your right hand. You also have to come, oh, as long as we need someone, there we go. Mr. Reyes, do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you. With that, I will turn to Dr. Draper. If you would please raise your right hand. Dr. Draper, do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Dr. Atelovich, if you would please raise your right hand. Dr. Atelovich, do you swear or affirm under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you will give in this proceeding will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Ms. Carroll, please feel free to introduce your witnesses. Just as a reminder, please do ask them to affirm that their written the written case in chief testimony are true and correct. And if you could identify if there were any revisions, and please refer to the exhibit number for each of the witnesses' written testimony, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, Mr. Reyes, I will start with you. I will first ask, is DWR-00600 listed as your testimony a true and correct copy?
Yes, it is.
Is DWR-00601 a true and correct copy of your original PowerPoint?
Yes, it is.
Is DWR-00601E a copy of your PowerPoint with the errata?
Yes, it is.
Is DWR-00602 a true and correct copy of your CV?
Yes, it is.
And then did you rely upon DWR exhibits DWR-00202 through 214, DWR-00603, excuse me, through DWR-609 to develop your testimony and opinion?
Yes, I did.
Did you also rely upon Administrative Hearing Officer exhibits AHO-049 and AHO-1000 through 1249 to develop your testimony and opinion?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. And then I'll continue with you, Dr. Atelovich. Is DWR exhibit DWR-00609 a true and correct copy of your testimony?
It is.
Thank you. Is DWR-00610 a true and correct copy of your CV?
It is, but there is one typo in the award date of the Masters from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which should read 1995 instead of 1998.
Thank you for that correction, Dr. Atelovich. And then is DWR exhibit DWR-00202 through 214, DWR-00603 through 609, what you relied upon to develop your testimony and opinion?
They are.
And then did you rely upon Administrative Hearing Office exhibits AHO-049 and AHO-1000 through 1249 to develop your testimony and opinion?
I did.
Thank you. And then Dr. Draper, I'll move to you before we proceed. Is DWR exhibit DWR-00200 a true and correct copy of your testimony?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Is exhibit DWR-00201 a true and correct copy of your CV?
Yes, it is.
Did you rely upon DWR exhibits DWR-00202 through 00214 to develop your testimony and opinion?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. And with that, I'd request that we pull up the slide deck for Mr. Reyes.
Do you happen to have a exhibit number, Ms. Carroll?
I do. Let's see. It is DWR-00601E.
Thank you.
Good morning, hearing officer and members of the board. My name is Eric Reyes, manager of the Modeling Support Office of the Department of Water Resources. I'm a registered civil engineer in the state of California and have over 25 years of experience in Central Valley and Bay Delta water modeling. I lead the development, maintenance, and application of mathematical modeling tools for the California Central Valley system related to the State Water Project, the Central Valley Project, and Sacramento, San Joaquin, Bay Delta. A copy of my statement of qualifications has been submitted as DWR exhibit 00602. Next slide, please. I will give a summary of my testimony, which is DWR exhibit 00600, and cover three main topics: a presentation of the modeling tools, validation and calibration of the tools, and appropriate use of the tools. My testimony focuses on the modeling tools and the methodology only, and my testimony does not go over the specific modeling results related to the Delta Conveyance project. The modeling results will be presented in panel 2. Next slide, please. I will now give an overview of modeling tools selected for the Delta Conveyance project. It is my professional opinion that the following modeling tools are the best available tools to analyze the effects of the Delta Conveyance project. The tools are Calcium-3 and 2 modules of DSM-2, Hydro and Qual. These tools were used to compare and contrast effects between different scenarios, in this case, with and without the Delta Conveyance project. Next slide, please. This is a graphic that shows data flow from model to model. The top box representing Calcium-3 is a hydrology and systems operation simulation model. It is run on a monthly time step, and its main outputs are river flows, exports, storage, and deliveries. And outputs from that model, Calcium-3, are then used as boundary conditions for DSM-2 hydro, which brings us to the middle box.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Reyes, to interrupt. We're having this is a logistical challenge. Because Ms. Carroll, because your video is off, the YouTube feed doesn't show Mr. Reyes. Is it possible to, I don't know if it's possible to address that. Well, I don't know if we need, or if Mr. Reyes can use his microphone. I just wanted to see if we could fix that just for the.
I'm happy to leave my camera on so that you can see
Okay.
Mr. Reyes.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm sorry, Mr. Reyes. I'm sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
Oh, no worries. Can you see me now?
We should be able to. In theory, this should work.
Okay.
I can see you, but it's the YouTube feed that it goes by speaker, so it works a
Gotcha.
little differently. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, picking up where I left off, we're now in the middle box for DSM-2 hydro, and it is a delta hydrodynamic simulation model. It is run at a 15-minute time step, and it simulates tidally based delta channel flows, velocities, and stage. Outputs from DSM-2 hydro are then used as inputs into DSM-2 qual. So now we're in the bottom box, where DSM-2 qual is a delta water quality simulation model. It is also run at a 15-minute time step, and it simulates tidally based salinity as electrical conductivity and chlorides. And information from each of these models can then be used in biological models to assess the effects to aquatic species. And those models and their results will be presented by panel 3. Next slide, please. Now present each of the modeling tools and their attributes, starting with Calcium 3. Calcium 3 is the best available planning model to represent operations of the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project. It is a generalized system model typically used for water resources planning. It's jointly developed by both the Department of Water Resources and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. It has a monthly time step simulation of the Central Valley and the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta region over a range of hydrologic conditions. And the baseline of Calcium 3 typically represents current conditions. Scenarios can then be developed to examine change conditions such as facilities, operations, regulations, climate, etc. Next slide, please.
Hearing Officer Kinsey, if I may interrupt, we've received notice that only people can see me on the YouTube channel. So if we may take just a moment, we can rectify the technical issue.
Thank you.
Get right back to you. So we may have a minute or two. Thanks.
Sure. Let's pause for a minute. And for those other parties who are watching and you may be thinking about how to present your own panels, I think the YouTube feed shows the speaker where the audio is coming from, and it's because the audio was through Ms. Carroll's system. We were getting a visual of Ms. Carroll, mostly the slide, but Ms. Carroll with Mr. Ray's voice.
Okay, can you all see me now?
We can hear you. And in theory, this should be a correct feed to our YouTube stream. Thank you. Please go ahead, Mr. Reyes.
All right. So further attributes of the Calcium 3 model are Calcium 3 is an update to and an improvement over the Calcium 2 model. It builds off calcium 2, which has been used for planning for over 2 decades. The improvements were made to improve water supply and demand estimates and to implement recommendations from the 2003 calcium 2 peer review as part of the California Bay Delta Authority Science Program. Improvements and updates include finer spatial resolution, better water supply and demand estimation, improved groundwater representation and simulation, enhanced model spatial and temporal domain, by which I mean improved upper watershed representation, and also additional years were added to the period of simulation. And it's run on an advanced model engine called RIMS 2.0. Calcium 3 is also a transparent model, meaning it's publicly available, it's free to download, it is open source, and it is a community model, which is a broad group of interested parties providing input and review to update and improve the model. Next slide, please. So now I'll be presenting attributes of DSM-2 Hydro. It's the best available delta planning model to assess long-term hydrodynamics. It's a one-dimensional hydrodynamic model of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta, and it uses calcium 3 outputs to set delta river inflows and delta diversions. It is run on a 15-minute time step, and a baseline typically represents current conditions. Scenarios can be developed to examine physical system alterations, and also DSM-2 scenarios can also reflect change conditions from calcium, an example being different climate or change regulations. DSM-2 Hydro produces tidally based flows, stage, and velocities. And it's also a transparent model for the same reason about calcium 3. Next slide, please. And now I'll talk about the attributes of DSM-2 Qual. It is the best available delta planning model to assess long-term water quality. It uses DSM-2 hydro flows to calculate salt transport and other water quality constituent concentrations. And it's transparent for the same reasons as I stated previously. Next slide, please. Now I'll shift gears and go into presenting about model calibration and validation for both calcium 3 and DSM-2. When I'm talking about calibration, I'm talking about stimulated or derived physical processes that are calibrated in both models to better match observed data. Validation is an evaluation of the calibration quality and is done to the extent possible and by different methods. Calcium is a planning model that is comprised of a mix of physical processes, many of which derive the input data. And it's also a mix of operational decision-making. DSM-2, however, is a physical model. And I will present examples of calibration and validation of physical processes of both models, starting with calcium 3. Next slide, please. So more detailed descriptions of calcium 3 can be found in exhibits DWR 00202 through DWR 00204. And those include descriptions of the calibration and validation of calcium 3. So this slide is just a sample of physical processes used in calcium that have some form of calibration to observe data. The model that you see referenced in the far left column heading is for either a submodel or a process in calcium 3. In the next column heading, you'll see process name, and next to that, direct or indirect calibration or validation method, and then data source, and finally, calibration parameters are listed in the table. These parameters are what are calibrated to produce better agreement to observed data. Next slide, please. So now I'll go into some examples of the actual calibration and validations in calcium 3. So this slide shows some graphical representations of selected calibrations and validations for calcium 3 input data. To evaluate the calibration quality, we plot simulated or derived data versus observed data. In other words, a scatter plot, and develop a linear. The regression produces the coefficient of determination, otherwise known as R squared. R squared values can range from 0 to 1, with 0 being poor quality and 1 being excellent quality. Thus, R squared values approaching 1 indicate a better quality of calibration and provide a form of validation. We also use visual inspection of time series to validate the quality of the calibration. So on this slide, if you look at the top two panels, they are an example of derived flow correlation data. The left panel is a scatter plot of derived versus observed data and shows an R squared for the derived flow correlation of 0.92. The right panel is a time series plot, and visual inspection shows good agreement. And so what we have in these plots are red is the simulated or computed flow, and blue is the historical flow. The bottom two panels show derived reservoir evaporation rates for Oroville and Shasta. And R squared for reservoir evaps are between 0.87 and 0.98 for all the reservoirs simulated in calcium 3. Next slide, please. So I just want to point out that this slide was corrected from the original submission. So this is part of the errata to correct the label for the bottom two panels. It previously had a label for ag deliveries for FRSA for the bottom two panels when they were meant to be for CBP North of Delta, which you see corrected here. So this slide shows ag deliveries for the Feather River service area and for CBP North of Delta. Again, blue is observed and red is simulated or calculated. So comparing simulated ag deliveries to recent historical observed data is an indirect way of validating multiple physical processes that affect the simulated ag deliveries. In this case, we are again using R squared and visual inspection of time series as a method of validation. Simulated ag deliveries to FRSA and CBP North of Delta were compared to recent historical observed deliveries, and they show an R squared of 0.93 for the FRSA deliveries and 0.88 for the CBP ag deliveries. And if you look at the left panels, visual inspection also generally shows good agreement. Average annual ag deliveries for the period of 1996 through 2015 are 1,057,000 acre feet per year for the historical period, and 1,128,000 acre feet per year for the simulated. And that's for federal CBP ag. We have 334,000 acre foot per year of deliveries for historical, and 360,000 acre foot per year for simulated. In both these cases, the simulated is within 8% of the historical value, which indicates good agreement. And simulated values will not always match historical values due to real-time considerations. Next slide, please. Simulated operations of SWP and CBP reservoirs under current regulatory requirements have been studied and vetted by project operational staff within DWR and reclamation. Validation of calcium 3's hydrology was performed by comparing simulated flows to observed historical data at major gauge locations along the Sacramento River for water years 1996 through 2021. To focus on the hydrology and validation of simulated water supply conditions, simulated flows shown in these charts have been adjusted to remove discrepancies caused by differences between historical and simulated storage regulation in Trinity, Shasta, Oroville, and Folsom reservoirs. Simulated and historical flows for the Sacramento River at Bend Bridge, the top two panels, at Wilkins Slough, the bottom two panels. So the left-hand charts are monthly time series, and the right-hand charts are monthly scatter plots. Simulated flows may differ from historical flows because of imperfect estimate of boundary inflows from mountain streams and inflows from rainfall runoff on the valley floor. They also may differ because of imperfect simulation of diversions, return flows, and stream groundwater interaction. However, the scatter plots have very high R-squared values, 0.99 for Bend Bridge and 0.83 for Wilkins Slough. This goodness of fit is partly because the simulated hydrology has been bias corrected to be consistent with observed historical record. Next slide, please. So now we'll shift models and go into DSM-2 calibration. So DSM-2 has as a physical model, has had a calibration history, as you see there. It's been calibrated over the years and exhibits DWR 00604 through exhibits 00607 are the documentation of the calibration and validation of the DSM-2 model. And as I stated previously, these models are continually being updated and calibrated. And we actually have an upcoming DSM-2 calibration as a part of the Monitoring Special Studies, MSS. And is it intended to improve South Delta representation? However, South Delta is not sensitive to the export variations that we expect with DCP. And the Delta Conveyance project does not have an effect on San Joaquin River operations or in Delta sources. It is my professional opinion the DSM-2 updates to the the DSM-2 South Delta updates being developed for the Monitoring Special Studies, which is slated for release mid to late 2025, would not change the conclusions of the FEIR when looked at in a comparative analysis. Next slide, please. This is a slide on Edmonton electrical conductivity, EC. The top panel is a time series of EC, and blue is the observed data. Orange is a previous version of DSM-2, version 8.1.2. And green is DSM-2 version 8.2, which is the current version used for the Delta Conveyance project. The bottom left panel is a scatter plot, and the table next to it shows the linear regression statistics. For the previous model, the R-squared showed a value of 0.85, and the newer version now shows R-squared of 0.92. So it's indicative of our improving calibration quality over time. Next slide, please. This is a similar slide to the previous one, but this is for a different location. This slide shows San Joaquin River at Jersey Point electrical conductivity. And similar to the previous slide, the older version 8.1.2, had an R-squared of 0.75, and it improved to now an R-squared of 0.91 with version 8.2. Next slide, please. Climate change was considered in the FEIR, but was not a part of, or will not be a part of the results analysis that will be presented by panel 2. But I just want to give some background on the climate change in the FEIR. Climate change makes its way into our models chiefly through two pathways. It could be through the meteorologic and hydrologic conditions, and it can also come in through sea level rise. For the meteorologic and hydrologic conditions, DWR impaneled a national group of climate experts and formed the Climate Change Technical Advisory Group. And they selected 20 projections that best reflected California climate. The 20 projections are a subset of CMIP 5, the Coupled Model Intercomparison Project 5, which was the latest information at the time of the preparation of the FEIR. The 20 projections are comprised of 10 global climate models under 2 emission scenarios from the IPCC Fifth Assessment Report. The process for processing climate projections is consistent with other DWR planning processes, where historical temperature and precip are adjusted based on climate model projections to represent future conditions with a quantile mapping approach. Statistically downscaled datasets of bias-corrected monthly temperature and precip are then used as inputs into the VIC model, the Variable Infiltration Capacity Hydrologic Model, which is a rainfall runoff model. Those VIC changes are then mapped to calcium inputs, and that is how we represent changes in climate change for the model. For sea level rise, we use the 2018 guidance from the California Ocean Protection Council, which was the best available science at the time of the preparation of the FEIR. ECP index would be critical infrastructure. We use the appropriate risk category guidance of extreme risk aversion. And that guidance was for 1.8 feet at 2040. And so for the DCP process, we used industry standards and accepted methods. Next slide, please. Now I'll go into the appropriate use of models. So the models are best used comparatively. The models show generalized long-term trends, but not absolute predictions. When showing model results, statistical comparisons are preferred over absolute differences at specific points in time. For example, period averages, monthly averages, year type averages, and exceedance probabilities are preferred. This approach helps mitigate the distorting effects of varying antecedent conditions, and it offers a clear evaluation of project impacts. Next slide, please. It is my professional opinion that Calcium-3 and DSM-2 are the best available tools to evaluate the effects of the Delta Conveyance project. The tools have been developed and refined for over 2 decades using the best available science. They've utilized significant stakeholder engagement, and the tools have been calibrated, validated, and vetted. And they're the best tools for representing State Water Project and CVP, Central Valley Project operations. And the tools are also transparent. They're publicly available, free to download. The source code is open source, and they were developed with broad user communities that help refine and update the tool. And with that, that concludes my testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes.
Hearing Officer Kinsey, at this time, Mr. Reyes is ready for cross-examination, although you did state you wanted to get timeframes from the protestants first, so.
Well, my understanding, and maybe this is implicit here, that the witnesses are being presented as a panel. Is it your intention that Dr. Draper and Dr. Atelovich, do they have summaries of direct testimony, or are they available for cross-examination as well?
They are available for cross-examination as well. They do not have a summary presentation.
Understood. Thank you very much. With that, I'll start with looking to what I identified in our, I think, most recent amended hearing notice as generally I'll say the local agency parties, and I grouped you together for purposes of cross-examination. I will look to all of you to raise a hand as to who I should hear from first in terms of cross-examination. I think the easiest way would be to get an estimate. Mr. Reese, if you have one, let's go ahead and promote Mr. Reese to a panelist, because it looks like we'll start with him. And then we'll, if you can, give a I don't know if you can give a representation of the estimate of cross for the whole group. But Mr. Reese, you're welcome to come on camera and come off mute. Or Mr. Herrick. I'm not sure where the camera is going.
It's Mr. Herrick right now.
All right.
I don't know if any of the other parties are intending to or how much, but I have approximately an hour and a half maybe of cross-examination. It could be less than that. That's my estimate.
Thank you. And I'll look to others in the group 2 local agency parties. We'll start there. Ms. Meserve, I won't bring you up as a panelist. If we can just allow your audio for Ms. Meserve, please.
Good morning again. Yeah, we have coordinated amongst the various protestants, and after Mr. Herrick and Mr. Ruiz, then we've agreed that Mr. Busher would go next, and then Mr. Schutz, and then it would go to me for the local agencies, and then Mr. Cho for North Delta Water Agency, and then to Ms. Tabor and Lacey, and then to Mr. Moore. So it skips a little bit around between the different types of parties, and in part that is due to some scheduling issues and other just trying to order it in a way that made sense to us. I can provide the time estimates that some of us talked about yesterday, and then anyone should break in and correct me if I'm wrong. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great, Ms. Meserve. And I also just wanted to thank all of you for working together to come up with an order. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that it hopefully is helpful to all of you to schedule that way. So thank you for this, and go ahead, Ms. Meserve.
Okay, so we had about an hour and a half for the South Delta. Then Mr. Busher, I believe, may have an hour to an hour and a half. And then Mr. Schutz, 30 to 45 minutes. For me, 30 to 45 minutes. Mr. Cho, 45 minutes. And then the last two, it may be only 10 minutes. We're going to listen and try to see. We don't know what all questions will be asked. And so we will be checking off questions if they've already been addressed by others, is the plan we discussed.
Thank you, Ms. Meserve. And just to clarify for the group, I think it sounds like there are some coordinating parties, but not necessarily everyone, although I'm not sure if any of the others. Ms. Desjardins may have questions, Mr. Brodsky, but we can leave that to the end. I guess I'll look to Ms. Carroll. Does this estimate of time help you enough in terms of, it looks like we'll get through the end of the day, it seems to me. All right.
Yeah, I believe so.
Thank you. My inclination, it's 11:28. My inclination is to go ahead and get started. And I will just say, Mr. Herrick, we will break around noon. So if you get to a point around noon, that would be a good time for a break. Please let me know and we will just call it then.
Thank you.
With that, I will turn things over to you for your questions for this panel.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Kinsey. My name is John Herrick. I represent the South Delta and the other South Delta parties. I'll be asking my questions of Mr. Reyes. I don't mean to hurt Dr. Atelovich or Dr. Draper's feelings, but they didn't submit written testimony. So if they chime in, I guess that's fine. But I'm directing my questions to Mr. Reyes.
And Mr. Herrick, I apologize. It looks like I missed Mr. Krieger. He has a hand raised, and I would like to address that. So if we can pause just a moment. Mr. Krieger, if my team will put Mr. Krieger, allow him to unmute. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Kinsey. I'd like to, if possible, be elevated to panelist for purposes of making objections to cross-examination questions for state water contractors.
These are not your witnesses. I'd like to hear more about this. Why?
In support of for two purposes. Number one, to fill in any objections that state water contractors believe should be made to the cross-examination.
Oh, we lost your audio here.
for two purposes. Number one, to add any objections that we think our state water contractors think are important for purposes of establishing the record, and also to
chime in response to their objections.
Is there a reason Mr. Krieger is going, and I can't tell if it's on our end or if there's a problem with Mr. Krieger's audio.
Am I cutting in and out?
You're going on and off mute, which I'm not sure is happening on our end.
It's telling me it looks like I'm done talking. It looks like I have 7 seconds to speak and then I go on to mute.
That's strange.
I don't know what you have heard for purposes of my request to participate in objections as a panelist, but there were 2 reasons. Have you heard any of them?
We heard parts of some of them. Why don't you please go again? I apologize for the technical difficulty.
Okay, hopefully this one works. 2 reasons why I'd like to be elevated to panelist for purposes of making objections. Number 1 is to add any objections that the contractors believe should be made to the lines of questioning, and also to join the department in its objections, all so that we have a clean and clear record as to what our position is on the lines of questions. That's my reasoning.
All right, I will allow that. Let's go ahead and promote Mr. Krieger to
Thank you.
panelist.
Hearing Officer Kinsey, this is John Herrick. May I comment?
Yes.
I can understand the desire of council. The problem with that is there's 30 other people here that might want to join in commenting on objections and stuff. And so it immediately becomes untenable. So it's not really fair for have one party to be able to comment and not every party.
Well, and every party can raise their hand. I mean, that's always, so we may have to do that. So here's what we can do. Mr. Krieger, if you have objections, please use them carefully. I understand you may need to note for the record, but let's use a hand raise for now. We'll see how this, it's all new procedures. We'll see how this pace works, because this is, and thinking that Mr. Herrick has a point, especially when we, flip things around and we have different witnesses. So let's try that. You can raise a hand. I understand wanting to get your objections on the record, but I think also Ms. Carroll will be quite able with respect to her witnesses as well. So we'll do it that way. So I'll ask my team to keep Mr. Krieger as an attendee. Do raise your hand. I will be watching for that. And let's go ahead and go forward. I believe back to you, Mr. Herrick.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes, we've read your curriculum vitae. Do you have any expertise in salinity effects on crops?
No, I don't.
Do you have any expertise in submersible pump operations in Delta channels?
No, I don't.
Do you have any expertise in the leaching of salts through soils in the South Delta?
No, I don't.
Okay. Let's go to, can we pull up DWR 600, please? And first on on line 18, if I may read it, it says, therefore, for this particular application, DSM-2 results only represent generalized long-term trends. You see that in your testimony?
Line 18?
Yes, on page 12 of your testimony.
I don't see that for line 18.
18 and 19.
Oh, okay.
And then on line 1, you say that the planning analyses conducted to assess long-term changes in water resources are complex endeavors. And then it goes on. You see that too? So is it correct? Sorry. Is it correct to say that your testimony is that the results from calcium 3 and DSM-2 are useful in long-term planning? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, as your attorney referenced in her opening statement, do you understand that one of the criteria for this hearing is to determine whether or not granting the application would injure any legal user of water?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Do you understand that one of the criteria being examined in this application hearing is to determine whether or not the project will result in injury to any legal user of water?
Generally, yes.
Okay, could you explain how generalized long-term trends from the models can give us an answer to whether or not there's injury to legal users of water?
Objection, hearing officer calls for a legal conclusion.
With that objection noted, I'll overrule it, but noted, and Mr. Reyes, you can answer to based on your expertise and knowledge.
I think the purpose of the modeling is to determine any effects from the base case to a delta conveyance case, and that is how the effects are evaluated, and that is going to be covered in panel 2.
Yes, and I don't want to get into the specific results, but let me follow up on that question. And again, I'm not asking for a legal conclusion, but let me just hypothesize that, let's say that injury to a legal user might be a change in EC of applied water to the agricultural crop. So you understand that hypothesis?
Yes.
Okay, how does long-term changes in water resources allow us to determine any particular instance of change in EC that might adversely affect an agricultural user?
Well, I think these models are meant to show a changed condition.
Ms. Carroll, did you have a interjection here?
Yes, I'd like to object again that it's speculative and it's an incomplete hypothetical. And hearing officer, please let me know if there's another way you'd like me to.
You are welcome to just jump in. Since you're a panelist, you have privilege to just jump right in and object, and these are your witnesses.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Herrick, do you want to respond to that?
Well, one of the criteria in the hearing is, does it cause injury to legal users of water? So I'm trying to explore with this witness whether the modeling tools being used are the best available science to determine instances of injury to legal users of water. And so I think the questions are appropriate. I don't think there's anything insufficient about any hypothesis.
And Mr. Reyes stated that he understood, and it is just a underlying premise, if you will, or a hypothesis. So go ahead, Mr. Reyes. Or maybe, Mr. Herrick, you need to restate the question. That might be helpful for all of us.
Mr. Reyes, how do modeling results that show long-term changes in water quality or stage, how does that allow us to determine if there are any specific instances of injury to users of water?
Objection, hearing officer. Mr. Reyes didn't testify as to the results. He testified as to the use of the tools. That evidence will be provided in a subsequent panel.
Well, this may go on all day if we're going to do this, but if you're an Officer Kinsey, they're telling us that the tools are for long-term changes of water. And so the hearing issue, one of them is injury to legal users.
Mr. Herrick, I think I completely understand where you're going with this. And I'm going to allow the question because you are permitted to ask questions outside of the scope of the direct testimony with respect to case in chief testimony. So Mr. Reyes, to the extent you can respond to it, please do.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that question?
Mr. Reyes, how does the model results that assess long-term changes in water quality or stage allow us to determine if there are any particular instances of injury to users of water resulting from the project?
Well, as I stated in my my testimony for appropriate use of the models. They're best used in a comparative sense, and we don't think it's the best use to single out single instances as a point of comparison.
So if the project resulted in, as you said, single instances of injury to a user of water, is it your testimony that the models would not show us that?
Yeah. I'm not aware of any instances of injury demonstrated in the models, but we're using statistics of exceedance generally to show any changed effect that may cause any effect.
And when you say exceedance, are you referring to exceedance of a water quality standard?
No, probabilities of exceedance. Sorry, should have specified.
And probabilities of exceedances of what?
We're comparing a with case and a without case. And so if the base case has a certain probability of occurrences, maybe I should say occurrences versus exceedance, a probability of occurrence, has that changed the with project case? Has it significantly altered the probability of occurrence of any particular, value, whether it's EC, flow, whatever?
Okay, so these modeling tools will tell us, once the information is distilled out, the probability of something happening, not any particular instance of something happening. Is that correct?
I believe that's my understanding, yes.
Are you aware of the third amendment notice public hearing that has a B scenario? That's a horrible way to start. Can we pull up the third amendment notice of the public hearing and procedural ruling?
That might take us a moment. We might not be.
Can I just read it instead to save time while they're looking for it?
Well, let's go ahead and bring it up. It won't take long.
Sorry.
Thank you. And for my team, the third amended is the February 28th. There we go. And what page, Mr. Herrick?
The page with the two scenarios, A and B. I'm sorry, I didn't write that down. Just pan down, please.
Are you looking for the hearing issues?
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's okay. Looks like page 13, I believe. There we go.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reyes, can you see this page on the screen?
I can, yes.
And do you see hearing issue capital B in parens?
Yes.
And let me read that to you real quick. It says, should the State Water Board approve the petitions to change water right permits, and then it lists the numbers, even if the board were not to approve petitions for extension of time for the petitioner to achieve additional diversion and beneficial use under the permits, ? If so, what conditions, if any, including conditions to address the issues identified below, should the board include in the amended permits, ? For purposes of considering issue B, what maximum volume and rate of water is petitioner authorized to directly divert to storage, export from the delta, including direct diversion, rediversion, and diversion to storage, and sorry, you pan down so I can read the rest. And beneficially use under the permits, absent any approval of petitions for extension of time. So without quizzing you on that, the question, I just want to have that as a background for the question, which is, do you as the modelers, not the ones that did the performing the final stuff, but do you know what the maximum volume and rate of water is for DWR to divert to storage, etc. Do you know what the maximum amount and rate of water is?
Objection, that's outside of scope of testimony.
Overruled.
Yeah, so I think I'm roughly aware that for the diversions from the Delta, there's a 10,300 CFS limit.
That's a permit permit limit for rate, correct?
Yes.
This question is to the volume and rate. So do you know what the volume of water that DWR is authorized to divert under the permits listed?
Objection, this is Stephanie Morris for the Department of Water Resources. Again, this side is outside the scope, plus the hearing officer that they're trying to submit this supplemental information. So any questioning along the lines of the supplemental information prior to that information being submitted on May 27th seems futile and an inefficient use of resources.
If I may comment?
No, because I'm going to overrule the objection.
Thank you.
Based on that. I'm overruling the objection. Here's some reason. One is parties do have the right to cross-examine witnesses outside the scope of their direct testimony for cases in chief. That changes on rebuttal. For cases in chief, can ask questions. And I have set time limits for cross-examination in part to address this issue. But if Mr. Herrick chooses to use his time to ask these types of questions, that will come out of the total time for the local agency parties. Unless Mr. Reyes, I mean, the one thing that I'm thinking about, and I can look to Ms. Carroll or Ms. Morris, is if Mr. Reyes is going to be one of the witnesses who will appear on June 10th and 11th, that would be helpful to know. And it may make sense to defer this cross-examination until then. But if not, Mr. Herrick, I think, has permitted to ask his questions now. So that's my question for Ms. Carroll or Ms. Morris is, do you expect Mr. Reyes to appear on June 10th and 11th?
We have not completely set our witness list for those dates, so I can't give you an affirmative. However, I don't believe so.
Okay, thank you. Then with that, go ahead, Mr. Herrick. The objection's overruled.
Yes, and I'm not trying to complicate things. This is the foundation for the next question, which I think fits squarely within this, since the testimony is regarding the tools used for the modeling. And so the question I have now is, Mr. Reyes, do any of the CalSim 3 modeling scenarios or results submitted include anything that attempts to represent the maximum amount of water that can be diverted by DWR?
I'm going to ask my colleague, Dr. Draper, to perhaps provide some input here, because I think he's roughly aware of this as well.
Well, I can testify to the existing conditions model. I believe panel 2 will be discussing the application to the Delta Conveyance project. Under the existing conditions model, we do have a maximum rate of diversion from the Delta. We do not keep a running total of and limit the export from the Delta. Those exports are limited by allocations to the state water project contractors and the availability of storage in San Luis Reservoir. And under existing conditions, we do not hit the water right limit on maximum diversion amount.
Did I take that to mean that DWR the models don't have any maximum volume limit pursuant to their permits?
Not explicitly, because that is not constraining under existing conditions. What is constraining is the available storage in San Luis Reservoir and the allocations of the state water project contractors.
When you say it's not a restraint, how do you know it's not a restraint if you don't have a maximum amount specified?
because you can do a post-processing analysis and look at the delta exports and annual volumes.
Well, why do you think that the delta exports don't have a limit on the volume?
Objection calls for, Stephanie Morris calls for a legal conclusion. In addition, the question seems to be about, it's confusing as to whether Mr. Herrick is talking about the permit conditions or specifically about the provision in this section B shown on the screen.
Maybe Mr. Herrick, if you can try the question again, that may also address the objection about legal conclusions. Let's try it again.
I will.
Please.
I believe the question was, Dr. Draper, how do you know that there's the amount, the volume of exports is not a constraint when the model doesn't know what the maximum amount is under the permits?
We can look at model results, and in that post-processing analysis, in an Excel spreadsheet, for example, we can check that no water right permits have been violated. In general, Calcim 3 incorporates the allocation logic and non-discretionary operations that water managers of the State Water Project use. That we can conduct that post-processing analysis to make sure that we have not violated any conditions of the water right permit.
But the hearing scenario that I read, talks about the maximum volume under those permits. Your answer, I believe, just said that after the fact, you'd model and to see that you haven't violated anything. Against what are you comparing the volume exported to see if it violated something?
Objection, there's no pending question. This has been asked and answered. I think it's clear on the record that Dr. Draper has said that annually there is no limit. And this line of questioning appears to try to call for a legal conclusion.
I'm going to overrule it and allow Mr. Herrick to explore this just to make sure this is clear on the record, because you just summarized what you think Dr. Draper said. I'm not sure I came to the same conclusion. So go ahead, Mr. Herrick.
Dr. Draper, I believe you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the modeling shows you after the fact that there were no violations of permit conditions. But my question goes to, how do you determine that there's no violations unless you know what the maximum volume is to export? So what are you comparing your modeling results to say, or to conclude, we didn't violate any volume restriction?
Well, you could compare it to the limits specified in the water right permit. I can't give you that volume without looking at specific permits. I believe it's in the order of 4 million acre feet, but I would need to check with those permits.
So at your testimony, there is a limit on the volume to be exported under those permits. You just don't have it on the top off the top of your head.
Objection, misstates testimony.
Overruled. I'd like to hear the witness respond.
I would agree with that statement. I do not have it on the top of my head, the exact figure.
Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Reyes. You stated a number of times that the models used are the best available science. Do you agree with that? Or do you remember that?
Yes.
Would you agree that in order to measure any injury to a legal user, you'd have to know the magnitude or duration of any impact?
Objection calls for a legal conclusion.
Overruled. You can answer to the extent of your expertise, Mr. Reyes.
Yeah,
I guess for me, injury, I'm not exactly sure, what you're referring to, when you use that term. So, the tools are meant to show change conditions, of any, changed facility, operation, what have you. And so, we use the tools to show if there are change conditions, over specific periods in time, over the totality of the simulation period, or through our exceedance probabilities or our occurrence probabilities.
Do you have any understanding whether or not, or what amount of change in EC might be adverse to an agricultural user in the South Delta?
Objections. This is Stephanie Morris, outside the scope and outside of this witness's expertise.
And Mr. Reyes Mr. Herrick can ask these questions. They can be outside of the scope of his direct testimony. And Mr. Reyes, you can just say that this is outside of your expertise if that's your conclusion. Please go ahead, overruled.
Yes, that's outside of my area of expertise.
Okay, so can you say then whether or not the modeling will tell us if a change in EC will result in any adverse impact to a legal user of water in the South Delta?
Again, I'm here to talk about the models and their selection for the Delta Conveyance project. Any results are going to be covered in subsequent panels. So I don't know.
That's fine. Do you believe that DSM-2 is a proper tool to examine short-term changes in EC in the South Delta channels resulting from the project?
I'm going to ask my Dr. Telovich to weigh in here.
Stephanie Morris, objection vague as to short term.
And Mr. Herrick, will you specify what you mean by short term, please?
Well, let's start with 1 week. But I don't think that changes his answer. He shuffled it off to Dr. Eli. I don't want to mangle your name, Eli.
Okay. First of all, I don't want to overproject to the results, but there are results for the frequency of high values that are presented that will be presented in another panel. So that's another way of getting at the incident of higher levels. In the South Delta, extremes tend to get brought on from a number. The biggest drivers of large values of salinity in the Delta are San Joaquin River inflows and in Delta sources and sinks of EC, which can spike to very high values. Those are both coming from sources that in a comparative study will be held the same in both a with DCP and without DCP case. So you'd have, for instance, we would not impose different assumptions about agricultural consumptive use in a comparative study. So the major drivers of spikes would, for the most part, be balanced in a comparative study. I do believe that the effect of the project, which is fairly minimal, it comes from export changes. That is not a very sensitive input to salinity, would not produce spiky or high frequency changes in the EC in the South Delta.
Okay, but the question was, is the DSM-2 model the proper tool for determining, I said short term, so first I'll ask over a week's period, any adverse impact to a South Delta water user?
Yes, well, impact. Can you describe can we get a little more detail on that? Because I don't want to speak to impact and get into the agricultural speculation that you brought up earlier.
Well, that's why I changed my questioning, because Mr. Reyes said he's not qualified to make comments on that. Are you qualified to make comments on how changes in EC will affect agricultural crops in the South Delta?
That's outside of anything I'm prepared to talk about.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Reyes, I'm checking my time here. Oh, it's
You're right
right now, and I think that's a good time to break, if you don't mind.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Herrick. That worked well. Just a few notes before we I plan to take an hour for lunch. This is a marathon and not a sprint, and I know we all have other things that we have to attend to as well. I will ask, this is a new procedure. I will ask if you are willing and able to remain logged in to the Zoom platform. The reason for that is we've taken appearances and we've noted who we've heard from. That helps us. I know you can go in and out, but when you come back, then it's helpful for us if you stay in the room. So I will ask if you're willing to do that. We will take a full hour. Before we break, I'll look to the room. Are there any hands that we need to address before we end this? To the court reporter.
Thank you, Hearing Officer Quincy. I am recording a secondary recording on my phone, and I will need to use that, access it while we're on break.
You are welcome to, yes, you are welcome to drop in and out. That's no problem.
But the only way I can communicate with you directly because of the recording is if you let me back in on my iPhone. So then I'll be able to respond to you when you're ready to go back on the record verbally.
I want to make sure I understand. I will be
remaining on the platform on my computer.
I see.
I will be disconnecting on my iPhone. So there will be a request for me to come back in. If I have to, I will stay on unless or until I need to drop.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we will make sure you're in the room.
Thank you.
Ms. Desjardins, you can come off mute.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask, as I'm observing it and thinking about my own cross-examination, is the time for DWR's objections and responding to them, to the cross-examination questions, is that being part of the time accounting for John Herrick's cross-examination, or is that part of DWR's time for making objections?
I'm going to look to my team to remember how we set this up. The actual objections are against the party making the objection, and I believe the time to respond goes towards the time of that particular party. Yes, I think that's how our timing is being conducted. So it's did that answer your question, Ms. Desjardins?
Yeah, I'm wondering how you're keeping track of the time for, because the DWR's attorneys are jumping in and asking questions or raising objections, how you're keeping track of their time making objections.
We have a staff person who is timing.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are logging that and we will make it available. All right, seeing no additional hands, thank you. Thank you for staying on the platform. We will return at 1 p.m.